Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, hockey fans. It is a not too bad little 4 degrees Celsius, 39 degrees Fahrenheit in overcast Bridgewater, Nova Scotia today. My name is Justin, BridgewatersFinest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and welcome to the Tuesday, April 19th edition of the Bridgewater's Finest 2016 NHL Playoffs podcast. Now, we had 3 really fun and interesting games go down last night. Just before we get into it, I do hope you guys are enjoying my little weather reports that I give you at the beginning of the podcast. I honestly don't know why I did it on the first episode. I thought maybe it was a cute way to do a little intro for the first episode, and it's just kind of stuck. So hopefully you guys are enjoying it because I don't plan on that stopping anytime soon. Let's get right into our game reviews from last night. The first game we're going to look at is the Washington Capitals traveling to Philadelphia for Game 3 of their series with the Flyers. And this game was close for about 35 minutes, a little more than half. Washington just blowing it wide open in the last half of the game. Washington wins this thing by a score of 6-1 to take a commanding 3-0 stranglehold on this series. Shots were 32-27 for the hometown Flyers. Obviously, this was a very emotional game for the Flyers, their first home game since the passing of team founder Ed Snider. Very touching pregame ceremony dedicated to Ed Snider, and the Flyers come out flying, no pun intended, with instant pressure in this game. They obviously got a huge lift from that pregame ceremony, and 57 seconds into the first period, Philly sends that building into a frenzy by getting on the board first. It's Raffle from Manning and Gagne, a rebound off of Manning's point shot. Raffle tucks it home. It is 1-0 Philadelphia, and this is really starting to look like a turnaround game for the Flyers. Philly keeps that pressure going, constant pressure, really. They're hitting hard. They're throwing a lot on net. The white hit on Orlov, of course, was one of the much talked about hits in this game. I didn't think it was dirty. I think it was just a hockey play. I tend to agree with the people that are like, Orlov's got to... Well, first of all, Orlov's got to see him coming because he takes about 25 steps to get to him. But you're against the boards. You got to prepare yourself to be hit. And I don't think Orlov did that. I hope he's okay. I hope he doesn't have any sort of long-term effects from that hit. But you gotta pay attention out there. Wayne Simmons takes a holding penalty. The Capitals' top-ranked power play goes to work, and it wasted absolutely no time. 4 minutes and 43 seconds into the first period, Washington on the power play. It's Johansson with his first of the playoffs from Carlson. He deflects the Carlson point shot. Backstrom with the other assist on that goal. We have got ourselves a tie game within the first 5 minutes of the first period. This one's going to be fun. This is a chippy game. It's a physical game. It's setting up a great game. Capitals are staked to another power play. They are swarming. They are sending a lot of attempts on net. Steve Mason holding his ground, playing very, very well, trying to have a bounce-back game from Game 2. He's playing quite well in this one. The physicality continues through to the second period. Radko Gudas gets called for a roughing penalty. There is no damage on that. But 8:50 into the second period, Washington doubles their lead. It's Ovechkin with his second goal of these playoffs. Backstrom and Oshie with the assists. Ovechkin comes on the ice, comes over the boards, literally hides behind the linesman. And I guess it worked. He was staked he gets the puck, he gets over the line, he throws it on net. It gets past him. It was actually a seeing eye shot. I shouldn't say throws it on net. It was a great shot. I mean, it was just one of those snipes that only a guy like Ovechkin can really make work on a fairly consistent basis. But I just love the fact that he hid behind the referee and then somebody got him the puck. And then all of a sudden, oh look, there's Ovechkin, and boom, it's in the net, and it's 2-1 Washington. The Flyers get staked to a 5-on-3 power play with penalties to Daniel Winnick as well as Mike Richards. They cannot convert on that 5-on-3, but it wasn't for a lack of trying. They were just throwing everything on net, and this time I mean throwing. They're literally just tossing everything towards the net that they possibly can. They miss 3 shots in the span of 48 seconds. Voracek hitting the post, Gudas and Raffle sending their respective shots up over the net. The Flyers' push continues. 14 shot attempts in the last 5 minutes of the second period. Nothing going on any of them. We go into the third. It is still a 2-1 hockey game. Unfortunately, the third period is where this thing falls apart. The Flyers open the third period on the penalty kill, and just a minute 58 into the period, Washington extends their lead. It's Kuznetsov with his first of the playoffs. Williams and Holtby gets the assist. Williams just trying to dump the puck in. It takes a weird bounce off the glass or off the boards. Mason tries to catch it. He can't. Kuznetsov is right there. Little move. Tucks it in behind Mason. Washington has their third goal of the game and the second on the power play, and it is 3-1. Off that 3-1 goal, the Capitals up their physicality, they up their hitting game, they're clamping down more defensively, they're getting down, they're blocking shots. Washington actually gets staked to a 4-on-3 power play. Some offsetting stuff. Radko Gudas trips Kuznetsov, sends him back to the power play. 7:37 into the third period. Washington with another power play goal. It's John Carlson. I mentioned him in the game preview that he is really the cog that runs the machine here for this Washington team in this series. Carlson with his third goal of these playoffs. Ovechkin and Williams with the assists, a slapper from the point. No way Mason was going to stop that one. Carlson gets on the board. Washington extends the lead. And then Dmitry Orlov, one more time, gets himself into a bad situation. Pierre-Edouard Bellemare absolutely crunches him into the boards. 3 Philadelphia misconducts result in the scrum after this. Everybody just kind of gets in there. It started looking really bad. Luckily for Orlov, he was not hurt. And interestingly enough on that play, nobody went after Bellemare, who was the guy that made the hit. Everybody just went after each other. And Bellemare was the first guy to kind of have his hands on his head and be like, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened. And actually checking on Orlov to see if he was okay. It's nice to see that kind of sportsmanship, especially in the third game of a playoff series that one team has really dominated. It's been really one-sided. So actually, big ups to Bellemare there, but Philadelphia takes 3 misconduct plays in that scrum. At this point, the Capitals essentially have the game in the bag. They basically spend the rest of the game on the power play. Now, they sandbag their power play a lot because anybody that's played NHL 16, you get that message from the coach, you're in control, don't embarrass them out there. So they really sandbag the power play, but 14:58 into the third period, Washington with another power play goal. This time it's Ovechkin with his third of the playoffs, second of the game. Carlson and Oshie with the assists. Ovechkin working on that slap shot, and it works out this time. Washington now has their 5th goal. And at this point, the Flyers fans, unfortunately, have had enough, and they start throwing their white wristbands onto the white ice. That's going to be a cleanup problem. And it does cause a delay. Now, actually, they get a delay of game penalty because this happens multiple times. The crowd is warned multiple times by the PA announcer, like, don't do this or else we're going to get a penalty. And they keep doing it and they get a penalty. Now, granted, about half the building has been emptied by this point because of the way that the Flyers have played the third period, but still, they get a delay of game penalty. They take a slashing penalty soon after. Again, Washington basically just spent the last half of the third period on the power play. 18:20 of the third period, another power play goal for the Capitals. This time it's Jay Beagle. It's his second of the playoffs. Schmidt and Orlov pick up the assists. Basically just a careless wrist shot. Like he just basically throws the wrister on net and it finds its way in behind. So, Washington, 6-1. That is your final score. Washington score a club record 5 power play goals. They were 5 for 9 on the power play. Can't give the best power play in the playoffs that many power play opportunities, but anyway, that's the most power play goals in a playoff game since 1997. That's almost 20 years, folks. That's a big accomplishment. Washington dominates the latter half of Game 3. They have a stranglehold on this series. I would not be surprised to see them wrap this thing up in a sweep. That's not an official prediction yet, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it happen. Let's go to Minnesota now, where the Dallas Stars have taken the trip up north to take on the Wild. That's Game 3 of their series. Dallas leading the series 2-0 with a couple of wins on home ice. Minnesota comes up big at home, winning 5-3 on home ice. Shots were 25-17 for the hometown Wild. Just 26 seconds into this one, that's basically the theme for today is goals in the early, first minute of the first period, because I believe it happens in all three. Yeah, it sure does. 26 seconds into the first period, Dallas gets on the board. It's Patrick Sharp, who I believe I might have mentioned on one of the podcasts that he needs to be better. Patrick Sharp picking up his first of the playoffs. Goligoski with the assist. Sharp deflecting the Goligoski wrister. That was a bit of a tongue twister. Deflecting the Goligoski wrister, and it's in the back of the net. Patrick Sharp's on the board. Dallas is on the board. It is 1-0 Stars. The Wild respond in an interesting place in the faceoff dot. The Wild win every faceoff in the first 3 minutes of this hockey game. I keep talking about it. Face-off wins means puck possession. Usually puck possession means a good thing, but unfortunately 4 minutes and 10 seconds into the first period, Dallas has doubled their lead, and wouldn't you know it, it's Patrick Sharp again. Eakin and Jamie Benn with the assists on this one. Sharp just beats Dubnyk clean. A clean wrist shot from the top of the face-off circle. Boom. Sharp beats him, and it is 2-0 Dallas. Dallas keep up the pressure and come within just an eyelash of this game being 3-0 and possibly out of reach. Devan Dubnyk denies Radek Faksa right on the doorstep, right in front of the net. Big save, so close to being 3-0, but that's a momentum builder for the Wild. The Stars kill off a late penalty, a Jason Demers tripping penalty on Fontaine, but 19 minutes and 10 seconds into the first period, last minute of play in the period, Minnesota gets on the board. It's Porter from Haula and Brodin. A nice little tip off of the slap pass from Haula. Porter puts it in. It is 2-1 heading into the first intermission. Minnesota takes that momentum. They come out strong in the second period. Multiple scoring chances. David Jones with a big hit on Patrick Sharp, paying him off there for those 2 goals. And 6 minutes and 4 seconds into the second period, Minnesota's momentum pays off. It's Haula tying the game on the tip shot from Jason Pominville. Niederreiter with the other assist on that one. Haula from Pominville and Niederreiter. Nice little tip. We have a tie game, folks. This is the most competitive game of this series so far, and is setting up for a great second half. Dallas really start pressing after that tying goal. They want to get back in the lead. That's where they feel comfortable. Devan Dubnyk standing tall, stopping every opportunity that comes his way. We get a little rough stuff with Charlie Coyle and Jordy Ben. They get some offsetting roughing penalties. But as the period expires, one more time, last minute of the second period, 19-13 in fact, into the second period, Minnesota takes the lead. Jason Pominville, who was everywhere in this game. Pominville gets the rebound off the Niederreiter shot. Dumba with the other assist. And all of a sudden, Minnesota's got their first lead of the series. Minnesota a little bit sloppy to start the third. They kill off a very early third period penalty. The Stars are controlling a lot of the possession game. The possession game, which is so huge late in the game. You wear out the other team by possessing the puck. Stars are controlling a lot of that possession game, but they take a holding penalty. Penalties, power plays have been killer throughout this whole playoff. I don't see it stopping anytime soon. 6:26 into the third period. Minnesota's second goal, in fact, within the 6 minute span of a period. 6:26 into the third period. Minnesota on the power play. It's Mikko Koivu. I called him out yesterday. He responded. Mikko Koivu, his first of the playoffs. A little backhanded rebound off a Jared Spurgeon shot. Charlie Coyle with the other assist. Minnesota has now doubled their lead. It is 4-2. Minnesota is rolling towards a victory here. And the reason they're rolling towards that victory? The defense. Because the Wild defense is just smothering. It looks like they're playing, the football equivalent is like a zone defense. But it's just smothering. Dallas cannot generate anything. It's essentially a trap. But Dallas was just unable to generate a whole heck of a lot of offense. Certainly not anything with any kind of consistency. Kari Lehtinen trying to keep the Stars in it. Makes a great pad save on the one-timer. Keeping this game close. Dallas rewards him for that. 13:45 into the third period. Dallas gets on the board, gets this back within 1. It's Colton Sevier from Demers and Fiddler. Sevier's first of the playoffs, his second career playoff goal, deflecting the Jason Demers point shot. It's in the net. This is a 1-goal game within about 6 minutes left in the game, so this one's going to be interesting. Both teams, after that goal, have a little extra in the tank. They got more jump. They're going. Dallas pulls Kari Lehtinen with 1:30 left in the period. And on the 6-on-5, Dallas can't get anything. Unfortunately, they can't get anything going on the 6-on-5. 18:46 into the third period. Minnesota ices it into the empty net. It's Jason Pominville again getting rewarded for his great game. His second goal of the playoffs, second goal of the game into the empty net. And this game is over. Minnesota with a big statement victory saying, we're not done just yet. This, I believe, is either the third or fourth straight playoff. I believe it was third for Minnesota, where they have won Game 3 after going down 0-2. I believe that was the statistic. I could be wrong on that. But Minnesota plays very well in Game 3s, clearly. Minnesota wins this thing 5-3. It's 2-1 heading to Game 4. And our third and final game of the evening sees the Los Angeles Kings traveling to San Jose, taking on the Sharks in Game 3 of their series. Sharks with a shocking 2-0 lead in this series. The Kings respond with a 2-1 overtime victory in Game 3 to make this series 2-1. Shots were 30-24 for the hometown Sharks. And again, as I mentioned, theme of the day, first-minute goals. 30 seconds into the first period, you don't even have a chance to take your seat. The beer is still cold when Joe Thornton, Jumbo Joe, gets his first of these playoffs. San Jose is on the board. Assist goes to Hurdle. A nice little cycle there by Thornton, and he just sends the wrister in there. It was a great wrister. It beats Jonathan Quick. It is 1-0 San Jose, and Los Angeles has got to start feeling the pressure. Not only do they feel the pressure, they respond to it. Massive Kings pushback after that goal. Between 30 seconds and 3 minutes and 8 seconds of the first period, San Jose get just one hit. No shots, no blocked shots, no missed shots, no face-off wins. They get nothing. They get one hit in about 2.5 minutes after that first goal. That is an unbelievable pushback by the Kings. The Kings have started to dominate this first period. Tommy Wingles hooks Drew Doughty, and we talked pre-game about the Kings' best players. They need to be their best players. I specifically called out Anze Kopitar. 8 minutes and 10 seconds. Kopitar responds on the power play for the Kings, his first of the playoffs from Lucic and Muzzin. The rebound off of Lucic's point shot. Kopitar buries it. It is a tie game, 1-1 on the power play. San Jose starts amping up their physical game here. They start hitting. They survive a Nick Spalling penalty, and Martin Jones absolutely robbing Anze Kopitar. Kopitar there damn near had his second of the game, and I talked about maybe he might have a goal or two, but Kopitar gets robbed right in front by Martin Jones. The Sharks, pressure, possession, they're drawing penalties. Nothing is coming from them because Jonathan Quick gonna be Jonathan Quick. Multiple great saves on the penalty kill. He robs Tierney after the penalty expires. Jonathan Quick also responding to me calling him out, saying he needs to be better. He just hasn't been playing like himself the first two games. Jonathan Quick, what a rebound game here for the Kings netminder. End of the second period now. Sharks take another dumb penalty. LA is absolutely swarming the net, and Martin Jones survives. He keeps the puck out of the net, keeps this thing tied heading into the third period. The solid goaltending on both sides. This was a goaltender's matchup here. If you love goaltending, you loved this game. The Kings trying to keep things physical. It's Pearson with a huge hit on Logan Couture. Later on in the period, Milan Lucic takes a slashing penalty on Braun. The Sharks send the house at Jonathan Quick. They're shooting everything. Multiple misses, but a bunch of close calls. Quick holding the fort. San Jose is sending everything. It's an all-out blitz. In the last 2 minutes of this period, Martin Jones on the other end makes a huge critical save on Luke Shen. That could have been the game right there. Big save. Both goaltenders are forced to make game-saving stops in the last minute of the third period, heading to overtime. This is the game that everyone deserves in a series like this. In overtime, the Kings are just the first team to get the physical edge. That's just it. They come out, they're more physical in the first few minutes. They get 4 straight hits on the Sharks. And what have I said about physicality breeding offense? 3 minutes and 47 seconds into the overtime period. It's Pearson from Brown and LeCavalier. Pearson keeps on the 2-on-1. He gets the goal. 5-hole on Martin Jones. I felt so bad for Jones because it was a relatively weak little wrister. Like, certainly wasn't a world-beating shot or anything like that, and it just beats him. And after such a game where the goaltenders were so good, it was unfortunate for me to see that be the game-winning goal. Like, unfortunately, I wish the game-winning goal would have been maybe a little more spectacular, but you know what? It was a hockey play, and hockey plays are supposed to dictate playoff games. That's what happens. Pearson with the game-winning goal, his first of the playoffs. Kings take Game 3. They get a little bit closer in this series. San Jose still has a 2-1 edge heading into Game 4. Hi, folks. This is Bridgewater's Finest, a.k.a. Justin, and I just want to take a second out of your podcast listening day to speak directly to the Dallas Stars. What the hell were you doing with Tyler Seguin? So, you're in a series where you're really in control. I mean, let's be honest. Minnesota are definitely severe underdogs in this series. You win Game 1 pretty convincingly, and you decide to bring back Tyler Seguin off of an Achilles injury where he lost a percentage of his Achilles tendon, and you brought him back in Game 2 of a series that you're not particularly at risk in. Let's be honest. It was great that Minnesota won Game 3, but let's be honest. Dallas is a better team here. So you bring Seguin back for Game 2. Now, granted, you win Game 2. I don't think Seguin had a lot to do with that, but you win Game 2. But now he misses Game 3 because he has, quote, tweaked something. Now, you're not willing to confirm or deny that he re-injured his Achilles, just that he, quote, tweaked something. Look, you're a Stanley Cup favorite. Don't rush your star players back when you don't need them yet. See, now you've got a thing where now Seguin's day-to-day. What happens if Seguin misses Game 4? What happens if Minnesota wins Game 4? Now your series is tied, and the other team is the team that's got all the momentum when it was you. When you didn't need him to win Game 2. Let's be honest, you didn't need him to win Game 2. You decided to rush him back anyway. And now he misses Game 3, and that's a game that you lose. Maybe, I don't know, maybe when you're down by a goal, maybe you need a guy like Tyler Seguin to be able to be in there and really push. But now you don't even have the option of playing him because you brought him back in a situation where you didn't need him. To me, that's dumb, clearly. But, I guess if that's the way you want to play it, that's the way you want to play it. Good luck in Game 4. Other news coming out of the league offices yesterday, the NHL is expected within the next couple of weeks to announce that Las Vegas will be getting their expansion team. There's no other expansion expected in the near future. This doesn't particularly surprise me. I understand why the league wants to expand into a market like Las Vegas. Like, look at all the money that's floating around in Las Vegas. Why do you think the UFC is just swimming in buckets full of money? Or boxing. Why has boxing survived this long with all the corruption and shit that's in boxing? It's because look at all the money that's floating through Vegas. So, I understand why the league wants to expand into Vegas. It's not a hockey market, but there's a lot of money. So, I can understand it. What I can't understand is why would you only expand one team? When you currently have an even number of teams, you're going to expand one team and now have an uneven number of teams. That doesn't make sense to me. I know it's happened before. I know other leagues have done it, but why wouldn't you want to have an even number of teams? That just seems psychologically satisfying to me. Anyways, looks like Las Vegas is going to get their expansion team. Good for them. I wish them luck. It'll be interesting to see how they decide to work an expansion draft. I don't know whether this Las Vegas team will be ready for this coming season. That might be a little ambitious, but it'll be cool to see Vegas get a team. Or just cool to see one more team in the league. And let's see how well they do for the first couple of years. Hopefully, like I say, hopefully Vegas is a market that wants to support this team. If not, we have another Phoenix situation on our hands. But a personal note to the NHL, let's get Quebec City back. Or hell, let's get Hartford back. Let's get Hartford, the Whale. Let's get the Whale back in there. They only beat Vancouver once, maybe twice in a lifetime. That's a Kevin Smith quote. Gotta love Mallrats. Let's get Quebec City in there. Let's get a second expansion team. If you want to expand, let's expand to 32. All right, guys, let's tee up tonight's action. We got 4 more games in the playoffs tonight, and actually both sets of 2 games start at the exact same time. Damn you, NHL, for making us choose. So we're going to start with Tampa Bay in Detroit for Game 4 of that series. Detroit with a big 2-0 shutout win in Game 3. The series is now 2-1 Tampa. This game begins at 7 p.m. Eastern. It's available on CBC in Canada and NBCSN in the United States. Your likely goaltending matchup, once again, is going to be Ben Bishop taking on Peter Mrazek, coming off of a 16 or 17, I think it was 16 save shutout in Game 3. Do not expect a repeat of the Wings' defensive performance. Do not expect this team for a second game in a row to hold the Lightning to under 20 shots. That's unrealistic. What that means is that Peter Mrazek needs to shine. He needs to play probably better than he played in Game 3. He's going to face a lot more puck. And I think in order to keep this thing close, Mrazek's got to play great. Tampa Bay also has to find their discipline. 7 Detroit power play chances in Game 3. That is not going to be good enough. They desperately need to find their discipline and keep it, and keep out of the penalty box. I know this is a chippy series. I know these teams don't particularly like each other. You can be aggressive, you can be intense without being stupid. You need to keep yourself out of the penalty box. Walk that line, but don't cross it. And you know how I literally just said you shouldn't expect a repeat of the Wings' defensive performance? Well, you really shouldn't, because you look at Game 3, only 4 Tampa Bay forwards had shots in Game 3. We're talking about 0 shots for Kucherov, 0 shots for Johnson. It's unrealistic to expect Detroit to be able to keep them down for a second consecutive game. Kucherov and Johnson are going to get their chances. I think that is really going to dictate how this game goes, is how Kucherov and Johnson choose to bounce back from Game 3. And you look at Detroit's side of the ice, it starts and ends with Pavel Datsyuk. Datsyuk needs to step up. Now, yes, he's leading the team in shots with 12, but I've seen pretty well all 12 of his shots, and maybe 2 of them have been even moderately dangerous. This guy needs to step up. I understand that there's so much on the periphery, so much in his personal life that he has to consider and decisions that he needs to make, but you're this team's leader. Even if you're not the captain, you're this team's leader. You're only a +2. You have no points in this series. You're arguably the most skilled player on this team, and you need to start showing it. Detroit's future in this series and moving forward in the playoffs rests on whether Pavel Datsyuk can get out of his own head and start playing hockey up to his own level. Based off of the fact that I don't expect a repeat of the same kind of defensive performance that Detroit put up in Game 3, I think I have to go Tampa Bay here. Tampa Bay is very clearly the better team, and Mrazek, I don't think Mrazek is going to be enough to tilt the table back to Detroit for a second consecutive game. I got to go Tampa Bay here. I like Tampa Bay to beat Detroit 3-2 in Game 4, take a 3-1 lead heading back home. The other 7 p.m. game sees Game 3 between the Penguins and the New York Rangers. This series is tied up at 1 from the 2 games in Pittsburgh. Again, begins at 7 p.m. Eastern, available on Sportsnet in Canada and the USA Network in the States. Your likely goaltending matchup, we're not 100% sure. Obviously, it's going to be Lundqvist for the Rangers. Fleury and Zatkov, that's been the question the entire playoffs. My lean is that it's still going to be Zatkov. This is the way that I imagine Fleury's concussion issues going. I think he's at the point right now where he's been medically cleared to practice, because he's practiced, I think, 4 days in a row or something like that. He's been medically cleared to practice, but the stress tests have not been indicative of someone who is ready for game action. And until I get the impression that that has changed, I have to assume it's going to be Zatkov. Zatkov has not played bad in this series. He just didn't play well enough in Game 2. And that's something that can be fixed. So hopefully Zatkov has a bounce-back game if he plays in Game 3. I don't think we should see Fleury in this series until things are dire for Pittsburgh, and they're certainly not dire tied up one apiece. I would expect to see Zatkov in net for the Penguins again tonight. Despite having only played 2 games in this series, the Pens rank number 2 in terms of goals per game at 3.5 per game. They're number 3 on the power play and the number 4 face-off percentage team in this playoff. So the Penguins have a lot of things going in their direction. They've played well these 2 games. Just really the second period of Game 2 was where it kind of fell apart there. But other than that, they've played probably 5 out of 6 periods really well. So Pittsburgh's got momentum. They don't have all of it. They might not even have half of it, but they do have momentum going into things. The Rangers are losing the special teams battle in this series. Rangers only 12.5% on the power play and only 70% on the penalty kill. That's not good enough, especially in a chippy series that has seen quite a number of penalties. So if the Rangers can keep themselves out of the box, keep this thing 5-on-5, I think 5-on-5 they may in fact have the advantage. You get into the special teams game, it is a firm advantage for the Penguins. In my opinion, if there's one player on Pittsburgh's side of the ice that they need to get more involved, it's Chris Kunitz. This guy's a top 6 forward. He should be getting top 6 minutes. He's not. He's only getting 13 minutes of ice time per game. Now, granted, he hasn't done a ton with it, but this is a top 6 skill forward. You need to be giving him top 6 minutes. They've got to find a way to get Kunitz more involved. I know they can't line match when they're on the road, but once you get back to Pittsburgh especially, you got to find a way to get Kunitz more involved. Maybe there is a line combination that you can exploit while you're on the road. I'm not sure. Whatever you got to do to get Kunitz more involved in the game, that's what you need to do. This guy could be a difference maker for Pittsburgh. And you look at the Rangers offensively, it begins and it ends with Derek Stepan. He has been head and shoulders the Rangers' most dangerous player. 11 shots in 2 games. He's put the puck in the net twice. Stepan is the wheel here. He is the one that makes the Rangers go. And he's the one that's got to be getting the majority of the attention from the Penguins' best defensive players. If they don't do that, Stepan's going to burn you again. And I get the feeling that Stepan's going to burn them again. I like the Rangers here in Game 3, especially given that they're at home, especially given that we're not likely to see Marc-Andre Fleury in this game. I think even if you do, I would still probably give a slight goaltending edge to the Rangers just based on the fact that Lundqvist played well in Game 2. Fleury hasn't played in a while. There's probably going to be some rust there. So irregardless of who plays in net for the Penguins, I like the Rangers from a goaltending standpoint, and I like the Rangers in this game. I'm going to go Rangers 3-1 tonight to take a 2-1 series lead heading towards Game 4. Speaking of Game 4, we've got Game 4 between St. Louis and Chicago. Chelsea Dagger in full effect tonight. The Blues are up 2-1 in this series after winning Game 3. This game begins at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. It's available on Sportsnet in Canada and NBCSN in the United States. Likely goaltending matchup, one more time, Brian Elliott versus Corey Crawford. No reason to make a change on either side. The Blues are definitely winning the special teams battle in this series. 25% on the power play versus just 16.7% for Chicago, and an 83.3% penalty kill, therefore, versus just 75% for Chicago. So the Blues are definitely winning special teams. Any kind of penalty trouble, the Blues have the advantage. Blackhawks, for their part, are the second highest shooting team in these playoffs. 36.7 shots per game. That's fantastic. They need to keep that up. They got to keep that going. More of that, more of that. And there are guys on this team who are shooting a lot, but really need to get more involved. Got to get off that schneid. Taves is kind of off that schneid now. He's got 2 assists. But Andrew Ladd, 12 shots on goal. Marian Hossa, 11 shots on goal. Bupkis to show for it. Those are 2 guys that need to work towards getting off the schneid. Eventually, it's going to work out for both of them, I'm sure, but it would be really beneficial for the Blackhawks if that works out here in Game 4. Quite frankly, from watching this series, I feel like we've yet to see Chicago's next gear. Now, maybe they're holding it, but, you're down in the series. So that Chicago Blackhawks playoff gear, and you all know what I'm talking about if you watch the Blackhawks, I feel like we've yet to see that. We haven't seen Chicago's best in this series. I think Game 4, we're going to see Chicago's best. I'm going with the Blackhawks tonight on home ice to even up this series. I like it by a score of 4-2. Maybe there's an empty net goal in there, who knows? But I like Chicago tonight. I think we're going to see that next gear. I think they're going to come out flying, maybe get a couple early. I like Chicago, tying this thing up, heading back to St. Louis for Game 5. And our last game of the evening sees the Anaheim Ducks. They have made the trip to the Music City to take on the Predators, down 2-0 to a wildcard team. That does not feel good for Anaheim. Anaheim, obviously no strangers to adversity this season. At one point this season, they were in the basement of this division, and they came back to win it. So Anaheim's no stranger to adversity this season, but they're down 2-0 to a very good Nashville team. This game begins also 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Once again, the NHL making us choose. This game is on Sportsnet 360 in Canada, as well as the USA Network nationwide in the States. Your likely goaltending matchup, definitely going to be Pekka Rinne for the Predators. I've thrown up a question mark on Anaheim. It's my impression, it's my gut feeling. I have absolutely nothing to go on for this, other than what I've watched. It's my gut feeling that Anaheim turns to Frederik Andersen. I feel like John Gibson has been very nervous in this series, and it's led to a couple of goals that in the regular season, Gibson's all over. He doesn't give up those goals in the regular season. But we got to look at the facts here. The Predators are shooting 10% on Gibson. 10% might not seem like a lot until you realize that every 10th shot is a goal. So if you give up 12 in a period, you're almost guaranteed to give up a goal. I think the Ducks need to make a change between the pipes. Objectively, I think Gibson is the better goaltender between the two of them. I think that's why he started the playoffs as the starter. I would like to see Frederik Andersen in goal tonight for the Ducks. That's my impression. If I was making the decision, it would definitely be that. If Andersen gets shelled early, gives up a couple of early ones, turn back to John Gibson, by all means. But I think Frederik Andersen should get the start tonight. The Ducks are definitely winning the special teams battle in this series, 20% on the power play and 87.5% on the penalty kill. They are also dominating the face-off circle, 62.2%. They are far and away the best face-off team so far in these playoffs. It has not translated to wins. Staying on Anaheim's side of the ice, Andrew Cogliano, who I really talked up in yesterday's episode of the podcast, or it might have been a couple days ago, but I incorrectly classified him as a center when he is actually a left winger. That was my mistake, so you blew it on that one. Andrew Cogliano, to me, deserves top minutes. Right now, he's the only Duck with more than 1 point. The only one on the roster with more than 1 point. And he's doing it on only 14:22 of ice time per game. Andrew Cogliano needs more shifts. Maybe start double shifting him. Who knows? But I think you got to move Cogliano up the depth chart here. Have him playing with some of those elite players. He's proven in the first 2 games of this series that he's worth it. So I think the Ducks need to start doing that. They got to do something to give themselves a spark. And on Nashville's side now, I told you a little while back, Filip Forsberg could be the difference in this series. Filip Forsberg has points in both games. He is a slight defensive liability, I won't lie. He's got 3 points. He's only a +1. Here he might even be even. So he is a little bit of a defensive liability, but I think the offense more than makes up for that. Forsberg has been the difference maker, and I think he's the guy that the Ducks really need to focus on with their best defensive players, certainly in Game 3, down 2-0. Very simple in terms of the prediction. It's a must-win game for Anaheim. 100% a must-win game. Matter of fact, the next 2 games, I would say, are must-win games for Anaheim. If Anaheim wants to win this series, they've got to win out in Nashville. So I like the Ducks tonight. I think it's going to be close. 4-3, I'll go. I think it's going to be a higher scoring game. And what the hell, let's put it in overtime too. Anaheim, 4-3 in overtime. That's my prediction to cut the lead of the Predators in half at 2-1 heading towards Game 4. All right, folks, that is it for the Tuesday, April 19th edition of the Bridgewater's Finest 2016 NHL Playoffs podcast. We are in the books. We got 4 great games tonight. Enjoy them. You have to make a choice as far as which ones you're going to watch, but I hope you enjoy them, whatever you choose to watch. I'm Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter. Tuesdays in the books. See you again on Wednesday.